So you ready?
Yeah.
You know which parsha it is this week?
Pekudei.
Very good. Parashat Pekudei. It's the last parsha
Yeah.
in Chumash Mos. And on the surface, when you start studying Parashat Pekudei, you think to yourself, what relevance does this parsha have to me in my life? It seems to be very far-fetched. Stuff about the temple, tabernacle, I mean, what's relevant? That's number one. But more importantly, because it's a repetition, if you remember the story of the building of the tabernacle comes spread over virtually 5 parshas. You have the first 2, which are Teruma and Tetzaveh, where you have God's instructions to Moshe and how Moshe passes it on to Betzalel and the team. And then you have Parshas Vayakel and Pekudei, the 2 final parshas, which kind of repeat everything that Hashem told Moshe, and then it says, and Moshe and the people did it. So the craftsmen, led by the team of Betzalel, they built it as they were supposed to. And it leaves us wondering, why does the Torah repeat, which we've discussed in previous classes, so we're not going to go down there, but at least we're going to try and see what can we learn from the Parsha. You know, it's interesting, Rashi, who's the foremost commentator on the Torah, when at the beginning of Parshas Vayakel and Pekudei, he says, I'm not going to give any commentary, any explanation, because I've explained it already in the instructions in Parshas Teruma and Tetzaveh. There's no need to repeat.
It's the same explanation.
Same, yeah.
Or same message, yeah.
So it's these parshas have the least Rashi in the entire Torah, because he doesn't have much to add, which, as we said, we began saying, so what's there for us to learn? How do we apply the parsha to our daily life in 2024? And that's what we're going to try and look for.
But was Moses accused of taking money in the other sedras? He was as well.
No, in the other sedras he wasn't.
But this one he was.
But that's in the Medrash. It's not actually in the parsha. You will not find it in the text. The text doesn't even hint about it, but rather the Medrash fills us in the details. But that's what we discussed, I think, last year. Anyway, so the Torah starts with the first, second verse in Parashat Pekudei. We can find it here on page 603, verse 22. So what does it say? It says, Betzalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, made all that God had commanded Moshe. Do you see anything in this verse that needs a little bit of explanation? Anything strange or worded in a...
Why does it end up with Moshe? Had made all that God had commanded Moshe.
Yeah, so we know, how was the system, how did the hierarchy work?
It went from God to Moses to...
God to Moses, and Moses to...
The people.
To Betzalel, to the team. So
But
when the Torah is telling us that Betzalel did it, should it say, who commanded Betzalel? Who did Betzalel
So I
speak to?
thought Betzalel got it directly from God.
He didn't. The whole idea was, Parashat Teruma and Tetzaveh, is that Hashem spoke to Moshe.
Yeah.
And Moshe told Betzalel, Betzalel, it says that he did it with tremendous wisdom and he had kind of prophecy, etc. The wording that the Torah uses shows us that he was godly inspired. But nonetheless, the narrative is that Hashem told Moshe, and Moshe told Betzalel. So what should have said? What should the verse ended? How should this verse be worded correctly? Should have been, Betzalel, the son of Uri Hur, made all that Moses commanded him. But it doesn't. It says how God commanded Moses. So Rashi, here he does give us commentary, and he tells us like this. He says, he says, actually, Moses had commanded Betzalel to do A, but he actually did B. Meaning he didn't do what Betzalel told him, he did what God had told Moshe. What does that mean?
Moses didn't tell...
If you look at the story before, if you look in Parashat Teruma and Tetzaveh, Moses begins with telling Betzalel all about the utensils.
Yeah.
How to make the vessels, the menorah, the altar, the table, the showbread. So he's focusing on the different vessels that were used in the temple. In the next parsha, he tells them all about the structure, the edifice, the building, how to make the walls, how to make the ceilings, the tapestries, etc.
That's the goat head, right?
With the goat skin, 100%. You're right, correct. So which one does Moses focus on first? Utensils. Which one second? The building. However, when you look here in these parshas, Vayakel and Pekudei, but Betzalel, what does he build first?
The outside.
The outside, which is the structure,
Yep,
and only then the utensils. And what happened was, Bezalel said to Moses, I know you commanded me first to build the utensils, but how does it work? When you buy a house, you first go to the shop, to IKEA or to whichever shop you're going to buy furniture from. Okay, maybe present company you don't buy from IKEA. I should, wherever it is. But you go, you buy the furniture, and then you say, okay, let's go and look for a house.
The other way around.
The other way around. You rent a house, you see what you have, what you don't have, what you need to fill in, and then you go buy the furniture. Besides, if you have furniture without a house, it get ruined. So Bezalel said to Moshe, how can I first build the furniture without a house, a structure? So you know what? I'm first going to make the house, and then I'm going to make the furniture. So Moshe said to Bezalel, you're right. Actually, that is what God has commanded me. God, when he told Moshe how to build, he first told him about the structure, and then about the vessels. When Moshe then transferred it onto Bezalel, he reversed it. He told him first about the furniture, the utensils, and only then about the structure. And then Bezalel reversed, he did like Hashem had said Moshe. And that's why it says in the text that Bezalel did like God had told Moses, which is first about the edifice, the structure, and only then about the utensils. Different to what Moses had told him to first do the utensils. So far so good?
Yeah.
But we have an obvious question.
Why?
Why what?
Why would Moses have told that?
Goyach, exactly. Why would Moses have passed it on to Bezalel different to the way God told him? If God said first to build the structure, and he spoke about the structure first, surely Moses should have passed on the information about the structure as God told him, and then Bezalel would do exactly as Moses said. And you know what, when Bezalel says to Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, what's the right way to do things? First you build a house, then you put in the furniture. Moses agrees. So it seems like, Moshe couldn't think of this common sense by himself. He needs Bezalel to remind him about it, and he has to concede and say, you know what, you're actually right, fine, go ahead, do the structure first. If it's plain seichel, it's regular logic. Why is Moshe recounting it differently? Do you have any suggestions? Are you with us?
Although he wanted it, he knew it had to be made in a different way. The way you explain it and get in priority. Without the inside, you can't have the outside.
So of course, he put priority on the inside. For Moses, the reason why he recorded it to Bezalel different is because he felt that utensils are more important than the structure. But we need to elaborate and understand why he felt that way. And if he felt, why didn't Bezalel feel that way? And why didn't God tell him that first? So obviously there's two ways to look at things. Do you look at the structure or do you look at the vessels? Which ones you give? Obviously both important. But which one comes first? Which one's even more important? So Moses somehow feels that the vessels, the utensils are more important. So we'll find out. That's one question. Another question that we have is if you look in Parashat Vayakel, when Hashem, when the Torah is describing how they actually built the tabernacle, so what does it say over here? You see it says that he made, let's find it inside, here, turn to page 593. So we agree that when it comes to the structure, Moses agreed that Tachlis, what do? You go the way things work. You first build the structure, then you put in utensils, right? So you do things in the right order. So look at verse 19. What does it say in verse 19?
It's like a smart, efficient order, right?
Efficient order. So what does it say in verse 19? It says,
he made a further covering for the goat's hair tent of ram skins dyed red and a covering of tashnas
skin above. So it tells us that Bezalel, when he was making it, what did he make? What is this? Verse 19, he made the roof. It was made of the skin of the goats, which was used as the coverings to the Mishkan. So he made, the Torah tells us that he made the roof. And then what's the next verse? Verse 20.
He made the beams for the tabernacle of acacia wood
standing upright. So what did he make? The walls. Which, when you build a house, which one do you make first?
The walls.
Of course you make the walls. And then you make the ceiling. Why is it that he made the ceiling before the walls? The same man, Bezalel, that came to Moshe, and as we just read to now.
He wasn't a man, was he? He was a boy.
Okay.
How old was he?
He was a young guy in his teens, no? So the question is, if he tells Moshe, you got to do things according to the right order, and he's giving a whole speech, and Moshe agrees, and they change it, so why, when he actually comes to the practical creation, he makes the roof before the walls? You just told Moshe, when it came to making it, that you do according to the natural order of things. So why does he make it the other way around?
Still, maybe it wasn't to do with the structure of the roof. It was easier to let the way they did it.
Yeah, but you make first walls.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
You make them the roof. Have you ever seen a house where they make the roof, then they make the walls?
Well, it could be, because if it's fabric, you lay it all out.
Yeah, but
It's
let's
not
remember, they weren't building it. They were just making it. They only built it in Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which was many months later. After Bezalel had finished constructing everything, Moshe Rabbeinu assembled them, put it together. So it wasn't like when you talk about a regular house that you building and you're putting it together. He would talk about making. So Bezalel said you first make the house, then you make the vessels, because you're going to order. So you're going in order, make walls, then make a ceiling.
I guess it's different because you're looking at the logical order, I guess, of inside and outside, but then you've got the order, then also top and bottom.
Anything to do
So you start from bottom up.
Yeah.
Anything
So the
to
walls
do
should
with
come
things
first.
that are permanent and non-permanent?
So we're going to discover. It's a good angle, but we'll find out. One final question before we actually see the explanation to all this is, here we're discussing the structure. We're discussing the edifice, the vessels. But what was the main part of the tabernacle?
The altar.
Yeah.
The altar. What was done on the altar? Sacrifice. As a matter of fact, this Shabbos in Mincha, we're going to start reading Parashas Vayikra. And Vayikra is the book of Leviticus. And it has all the different sacrifices that were in the temple.
Yeah.
So there were sacrifices for when you sinned. There were sacrifices for gratitude. There were sacrifices for festivals, for annulling vows, for all kinds of things. But which sacrifice was the main sacrifice? This Mishkan that we've been studying for 5 weeks. What was its main use? There was a sacrifice that was done constantly, every single day. What is that?
No.
There was the daily sacrifice in the morning and the daily sacrifice in the afternoon. The Torah says, "Et hakeves ha'echad ta'aseh b'boker, v'et hakeves ha'sheni ta'aseh ben arba'im." Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, you need to do a daily sacrifice in the morning, daily sacrifice evening. As a matter of fact, last week's parsha, which we read Shekalim, was about the half a shekel. What did they do with the money for the half a shekel?
They put it towards
buying their sacrifice. That's what it was for. They had a pot of money, which every single year they would put aside.
Give half a shekel.
Everyone gave half a shekel. Imagine millions of people. That's a nice pot. And that's what they used to buy the Olat Tamid, the daily sacrifice. Yeah. Because today we don't have an altar, we don't have a tabernacle, we don't have a temple. What do we do instead of the daily morning and daily afternoon? We do Shachris and Mincha. Marv is added additional, and it's not incumbent as much as the Shachris and Mincha. That's why Shachris and Mincha have a repetition, but Marv doesn't have. And also, like women, for example, are obligated to do Shachris and Mincha, not Marv, because the daily sacrifices were Shachris and Mincha. Those are the main two prayers which we today do as a continuation of those two sacrifices. So we're learning about the tabernacle, and this is the verse that tells us you got to do it. So the rabbis sat together and they said one day, let's talk about the most important verse in the Torah. And there was a rabbi, and his name was Ben Pazi, and he said, you know this verse which says about the daily sacrifice, the morning and afternoon? That is the most important verse in the Torah. If you're going to look for the whole Torah from Bereshit till V'zot HaBracha, this is the most important verse. So there was a great other rabbi called Rabbi Akiva. What did Rabbi Akiva say? Rabbi Akiva said, no, the most important verse is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love the fellow like yourself. Zeh klal gadol b'Torah is the most important verse. There were another two rabbis, but those were the main famous two verses. Which leads us to wondering why the rabbis, first of all, arguing about what's the most important verse in the Torah. That doesn't make sense. Imagine I told you, Dennis, you have a lovely three girls. Which one is the most important one? Which one's the favorite? They're all important, they're all good. And besides, you want to choose important verses? What about Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim va'aretz? God created heaven and earth, and that's why we're here. Isn't that an important verse? What about Anochi Hashem Elokecha? What about the Jews? All the history when they were taken to Auschwitz, to the Otter-Defer, etc. What verse did they call out?
Shema Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael is synonymous with the Jewish people. Yeah. So I understand you want to choose a verse, but that's the verse that you're choosing from all of them.
Yeah.
And besides, everything the rabbis have to argue about.
So how would you answer that? Would you say...
We're going to talk about it. So, and what's the connection between all three questions? So to repeat. Yeah. Our first question is, what was Moshe thinking
when he changed the order?
When he changed the order of the building First the vessels and only then the structure. Number two,
why did Bechler then not follow his logic when he did?
No, when he actually built it, why did he first build the roof before the walls? Number three, why the rabbis are arguing about the sacrifice verse versus V'ahavta Kamocha verse, and why are they looking for a most important verse? What do they mean by it? So in order to understand all this, we need to understand a general concept about Judaism, which is always good to revise and talk about and learn, because this week was Rosh Chodesh on Sunday, right, and Monday. So 3 days ago, we celebrated the new month of Adar.
The month of miracles.
The month of miracles is next month. Nisan is miracles. But Adar is the month we're in now with Purim, etc. Yeah. But for the student who knows well, we'll tell you that it's not only just called the month of Adar, but what's it called? Adar Sheni. It's a second Adar. It's a leap year. So this year we have a leap year. But why do we have a leap year?
Because to catch up the two different calendars we have, so they sync together.
And Pesach has always got to be in spring.
Exactly. Pesach needs to be in the spring. Why does Pesach need to be in the spring? Firstly, the Torah says, when we left Egypt, it was in the spring. So therefore, every year when you celebrate Pesach, it has to be in the spring. So it should be a copy-paste kind of thing. There's other reasons that it has to be in the spring. So, for example, we start counting the Omer, the barley, and the barley only would sprout and grow in the spring. So, if you be in the winter, you can't start counting the Omer. Another reason is because the people would come to the festivals to the temple, and it's called Regel, right? Why is it called the Regel? You know, it's Shlosha Regalim. Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot is the three festivals. What a Regel means? A leg. And why is it called a leg? Because people would walk by legs, by their feet. They would walk up to the temple from all over Israel. What's more pleasant, to walk in the spring or in the winter? Spring. So Shavuos is the summer, no problem, and even Sukkot is the end of the summer, it's still fine. But Pesach, if it would be in the winter, then we wouldn't be able to walk up to the temples. Hashem says, make it in the spring. Very considerate. And what does that mean? What does it exactly mean, we're going to make it in the spring? Let's think about it now. Had we not made a leap year, so imagine that we went from the month of Adar, and this would have been Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So when would Pesach be? On the 20th of March. 20th of March, is that spring? Still a day before officially, but even practically, look, it's raining, so it would have been in winter time. So what do? We stuck another month. We call this month Adar, and that pushes Pesach into April. So now Pesach is on the 20th of April, which is already proper spring, and it's more pleasant. But the question is why? Why do we need to push Pesach? Or if it was in the spring last year Pesach was in April. Well, why did it suddenly go to March this year? All the other secular festivals, so let's say 1st of January is always 1st of January, the new year, it never changes. Let's say, if you don't push it, it's going to go to the 1st of December. Why is it that Pesach moves? So for that, we need to understand how the calendar works. You see, when society came together and said we need to make a calendar so that we can invite people to weddings, so that we can have wages at the end of the month, so that we have a certain system that people know what to anticipate and to wait for, and so on and so forth, they said, let's make a calendar. So the Christians came and said, what are we going to base our calendar on? The moon. The Christians said on the sun. So they said the sun circles the world 365 days a year. So that's beautiful. You have a year will consist of 365 days following the sun. However, the concept of months has nothing to do with the sun. There's no 12 stages in the sun. Yes, there's a zodiac which has got to do with 12, but the sun itself, which the year is based on, doesn't have 12 milestones. They could have, for argument's sake, made 10 months. But they chose 12 for other reasons. So there you have the Christian year, the cycle which goes 365 days, and that is actually seasons are based on the sun. The Muslims, on the other hand, they said, no, we're not going to base it on the sun, but we're going to base it on the moon. Now, how many days does the moon cycle the world? The sun, 365 days to do a full cycle. How many days for the moon?
Every month.
Every month. Also the sun and the moon every day. But that's not because the sun and the moon are moving. They're actually moving very slowly. They have like kind of a rail that they go on. So they spin the whole day. The axle spins around, but they're moving also, and they move. It takes 365 days. So how long does it take the moon to go on its rails and go around the whole world?
1 month.
1 month. So how many days?
31, 30.
Not 31, not 30, not 28.
29.
Not 29. 29 and a half. 29 and a half days. Not spot on, in a few seconds.
No, but what I mean is always that same 29 and a half. It's not.
Always 29 and a half. So 29 and a half times 12 is how much?
360.
354. So a Muslim calendar is 12 months of 29 and a half times 12. So that's 354 days. So how many days short is the Muslim calendar from the Christian calendar?
320 something.
No, 365 minus 354 is 11. 11 days. So that means if you work out like this, if let's say a Christian baby is born and a Muslim baby is born on day one, same day. 354 days later, the Muslim mother says, my son is a year old. Yeah. The Christian mother says, no, we've got to wait another 11 days. Yeah. So only 365. The following year, 354 days later, the Muslim mother says, my son's 2. The Christian mother says, no, he's 22 days short of 2. Mm-hmm. 3 years, 33 days.
19 years?
No, less than 19 years. So basically so if in 3 years it's a month, so if you take 30 years, it's a full year. So when a Muslim child says he's 30, a Christian son will be 29. A full year gap difference between them. Your question, how many leap years do we have? We'll get to know.
13.
Every 19 years, 7.
Yeah.
7 every 19 years. So it's approximately 2 to 3 times. Every 2 to 3 years, there'll be a leap year. So what's the Jewish calendar? The Jewish calendar is not like this, like that. It's a little bit of a mixture, let me explain. Because we also go by the moon like the Muslims. We're the ones who invented it, by the way. It's not like them, they're like us, because the Jews chose the Muslim. The Muslims chose the Jewish way. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu already in Egypt, you need to count the months based on the moon. And the Jews are like the moon, waxes and wanes, etc., and so on and so forth. Many reasons why we like the moon. So we have a month is 29 and a half days, times 12 is 354 days. How many days in the Jewish calendar? 354. But what happens is, because as we explained, the lunar calendar is 11 days less than the solar calendar, and the seasons of the year go by the solar calendar. So what happens is, let's take for example Pesach 2 years ago, right? So it was in April, let's say on the 20th of April. That's the day Pesach was. Yeah. Count 354 days, 354, not 365, it's Pesach again. So now, it's not on the 20th of April, it's on the 9th of April. So it's moved back. Another year, 354, so it's no longer on the 9th, it's already on the 28th of March. Do you understand? So it's moved back. Yeah. So every 3 years, it moves back 33 days. Yeah. So it goes back into the winter. So what do? We stick in another month, and we kick Pesach back into the solar year that it should be in the spring. Does that make sense?
Which is why Ramadan changes totally during the course of the year.
Exactly. That's why Ramadan every year moves 11 days back. Yeah. And that's why I remember a few years ago it was in the summer, and now it's in now spring, winter, and eventually going to be in a few years it's going to be back in totally in the winter. It moves 11 days every year, correct? Yeah. So within 30 years it's moved the whole year, the whole cycle. But Judaism is always the same. So here we have it. We understand there's Christian way of thinking, there's the Muslim and there's the Jew. Well, we combine the Jewish way, the moon and the sun. Okay, so that's a very interesting thing, all about the calendar. Yeah. We've learned how Pesach and why we have a leap year, why we just celebrated Rosh Chodesh Adar too. Fantastic. But what's that relevant to us? What does it teach us? As we know that everything a Jew sees or experiences or hears, he learns something how to serve Hashem. So what do we learn from the leap year? What's the message of a leap year for a Jew?
A second chance?
Yeah, but second chance was Pesach Sheni. We learned that from there, and it's here we've got this calendar which is based on the sun and the moon. What does it teach us?
The importance of both. The reason why you've got it is to balance the sun and the moon.
Exactly. So what do the sun and the moon represent? And if we understand what they represent, and we need to balance the two, then we know what it means to us. So what does the sun and the moon represent?
Sun, what is
what's the main
light, heat?
Yeah, but you have heat from fire. What's the
light?
Light, yeah, but what's about the sun? There's two luminaries. One is the moon. Yeah. One is the sun.
The sun. The moon reflects, whereas the sun emits.
I understand, but you have also stars. They emit light. When you talk about the sun and the moon, the sun represents consistency.
It's always on.
It's always on. It's always light. There's never a time you wake up in the morning and you say, "I wonder if I'm going to see the sun today." I mean, obviously it's not a cloudy day. You see the sun every single day. What about the moon?
No,
You wake up and
changes
see the
every
moon.
day.
Tomorrow morning you wake up, you're going to see, not tomorrow morning, tomorrow evening. Tonight, you're going to see the moon.
Yeah, no, but it changes. It's always get go from no moon to full moon every time.
But this tonight, because it was Rosh Chodesh 4
Oh,
days
so
ago, so
full
of course
moon.
you're going to see
Yeah,
it. It's going to grow and grow until the maximum of the mid-month, 15th, is going to be on its peak, you'll see a full moon. But you're only going to see the moon for 15 days growing, then you'll see it waning, and then at a certain point, after 25, 26 days, you won't see it. At 28, 29, you won't see it at all.
Yeah.
And then it'll start rebirth again on Sunday. And then on the new day of the month. And even when you see it, it's not the same.
Yeah.
You see it like a crust,
Yeah.
you see like a banana, you see like a smile, you see half, right? You see 3/4. So it's not the same. Every day you see the moon is different. Every single day. Whereas the sun, you see it every day, exactly the same. So what does the sun represent? Consistency. It represents the Yakish. You know what's the Yakish?
No.
The German. Or
German Yakish. Swiss clock. The sun represents the personality of a person who's very consistent, very flat. You know, it's always the same. You'll see him at the same time in the morning, same clothes, same attitude, same half a smile or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He's always the same
The
person.
Yekkers used to only have one person saying Kaddish in the synagogue.
Correct. Because why? There's order, there's structure.
One person said Kaddish for everybody. In the old-fashioned German synagogues, only one person was allowed to say Kaddish for everybody else.
Correct. So it represents consistency. Consistency is not a bad thing, it's a good thing, right? Where's the moon? What does that represent?
Change.
It represents change. It represents fluctuation. It represents excitement. It represents one-off deeds. You know, the moon today is here, tomorrow it's not there. Today I'm doing the mitzvah of charity, tomorrow I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? This is the difference between the sun and the moon.
Yeah.
It also represents, by the way, the difference between Torah and mitzvahs. What does Torah represent, the sun or the moon? What would you say?
Torah is consistent. It's
It's
always
right.
there, never
It's
changes.
always
It's
there,
the
never
same.
changes, it's consistent. The Torah says, "V'hagita bo yomam v'layla." When it comes to Torah, you need to study day and night. We say in the Shema, "V'shinantam levanecha," study Torah. "B'shivtecha b'veitecha," when you're sitting at home. "V'lechtecha b'derech," when you're walking. "V'b'shachbecha," when you go to sleep. "V'b'komecha," when you wake up. It's always a time to learn. Consistent. Whereas mitzvahs, they fluctuate. Can you eat matzah today? No. Can you read the Megillah today? No. Can you light Shabbos candles now? No. If it's night, can you put into tefillin? No. Sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not here. Love your fellow like yourself. Is that always here? No. I might not be next to a friend. And I might not be up to doing something for a friend. And I might not be doing it in the best possible way. You can't expect from a person to be all the time on his best. So mitzvahs represent, what do they represent? The moon. And Torah represents the sun. Now, which one is a better person? Which one is a better Jew? When you think of a moon type of person and a moon type of Jew, or a sun type of person and a sun type of Jew, who would be more successful in life? Who's going to do better? The consistent person?
Normally consistent.
Or the person that he has enthusiasm and he's creative and he comes up with new ideas and okay, tomorrow he may fall asleep and he's out the scene, but when he's there, he's pumping around and he built a school and I don't know what, he's making a difference. Or the person that is always, this is what we have, this is what I was born in, this is what I'm going to die to.
Yeah.
And what's the answer? The answer is that we need both.
Yeah.
Consistency is a very important thing in life and we all got to have structure. And we're going to put into tefillin every day. But at the same time, we mustn't be stagnant. We've always look for being creative. We're always going to look to come up with some new concept. May feel it. I've been asleep, but now I'm going to pounce up in the most amazing way. What was good for today is not good for tomorrow. I need to recreate, reinvent myself, like the moon reinvents, comes every time something new. It's gone, it comes back again. So that's the two. By the way, being just like the moon is also not good. If somebody, today is eating kosher, but tomorrow is not. Today he comes to shul, the following week he disappears, you don't see him for a year, is also not good.
Yeah.
So you need to have a combination. And that's why the Jewish calendar is based on the sun and the moon. So the concept of leap year is to teach us that we need both. Although we're based on the moon, which represents the mitzvahs, but at the same time, we need this consistency, we need the sun, and we need so on and so forth. Okay, so now let's try to understand. Moshe Rabbeinu, what type of person was he? Was he a mitzvah person or a Torah person?
Torah.
No, of course he did both. I'm not knocking, God forbid, to say that.
Consistent.
Moshe Rabbeinu was the Torah. The Torah is called Torat Moshe. Moshe, Torat Tzivalanu Moshe. Right? Every time you speak about The Torah, Moses. What do we say? Moshe Emet, the Torah to Emet. It's all about Moses and the Torah. So Moshe is the Torah person. He's the study person. He's about the intellectual, the study, etc. So then Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that he needs to build the structure and he needs to build the vessels. Let me ask you a simple question. Which intellect is more important to study for a Torah person? A structure, a building, or the vessels, the mizbeach, the sacrifices, the menorah, the altar, the table? What really constitutes
Utensils.
Yeah, that's what's coming out in the one's just housing them, one's doing.
exactly? A building is a building. Imagine, for example, I have a shul.
Yeah.
Is it important to have the walls? Yeah, but there's no Sefer Torah. Is it a shul? No. But imagine I took a Sefer Torah, I put it in my house. I gather 10 people and I daven. Is it a shul? Is it a minyan?
Yes.
It is. Is it a walls of a shul? No. So of course you need both. I'm not knocking one or the other. You need both. But which one's got this little edge added to it? Which one's a bit more?
You could more.
Moshe Rabbeinu, because he was the intellectual person who studied and it's all about what is it, what's in it. Just walls in his mind are secondary.
Yeah.
So that's why he taught Bezalel about the utensils first. Whereas Bezalel, he was the practical person. He was the one about action, about doing, like a mitzvahs person who does mitzvahs, is action. Got to go, buy, build, do. He was also a practical person and he wasn't so much about the scholarly side, the cerebral side, but the implementation side. And that's why he said, what should we do first? We should first do the structure, the walls, because practically speaking, you need to do that first.
Yeah.
Now we can understand why the rabbis were having a discussion in the Talmud which verse is most important in the Torah. They weren't actually talking about which verse is the nicest verse, then I'll choose this, No, of course not. All verses are equal. But they were saying, what's the Torah teaching us? What's more important, to be a sun or a moon? Which one is the primary? Which one's first? Which one's second? Of course we need two.
Yeah.
As we said, with the sun and the moon. A leap year is both. But which one's first?
Yeah. The sun.
So you have two opinions. You have Ben Pazdi, and what does he say? The sun, right? It's all about consistency. Morning sacrifice, afternoon sacrifice, day in, day out. For me, that comes primary before the mitzvahs, before the creativity. Comes Rabbi Akiva and he says, no, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is more important. It comes first. What is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha? It's a one-off mitzvah. It's like it's an amazing action. You got to really be inspired to do it, especially if you do it in the best possible way. So, of course, Rabbi Akiva agrees. You got to you got to study. You got to be like a son and be consistent. But what's primary? Which first? What has that little edge added on is the mitzvah. Being a Jew that can bounce up and do amazing V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, he feels is what Judaism is about. So that's where they both agree you need both, but that's where they're arguing, that's what they're talking about. You see? So it's not just a random argument about primary verses, but once we understand that you need both, be a sun and a moon, do Torah and mitzvot, which one is the favorite? Which one is that? Is it like Moshe or is it like Bezalel? Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have an understanding about the discussion. We know they're both important, but which one do we put that little bit of emphasis? So the Rebbe, in his talk on the Parashah, he explained that he said, you know what? This was all very nice to have discussions about sun and the moon and Torah, mitzvot, etc. For many, many years it was good. But now we are in a place where the world is very different. We are preparing for Mashiach. And we're trying to bring Mashiach, and it's literally one of the footsteps of Mashiach. And as if you remember, we learned last night in the class, what did we speak?
Grab him, down, grab him.
We are in a world where it says in Talmud, right?
Yeah.
This world is like a banquet. You need to grab, you need to seize the opportunity. We are not the end. You know, like when a guy comes to a wedding and it's towards the end, he just grabs any food that's available. He doesn't say, hey, when's the first course, second course, give me order, structure. What's there, I take. Because Mashiach is coming imminently. And very soon there's not going to be any place for Galus, exile style, but only structure, Mashiach, which is very different. The Rebbe said we need to focus on the mitzvahs. We need to go against the order of things maybe which are normal and just jump in and chap any opportunity we have. Maybe study Torah, by the way, but it's about action, it's about doing crazy stuff. That's why the Rebbe came up with the mitzvah tanks, taking these big buses and turning them into Jewish buses, going to the street, put tefillin on. Normally you put tefillin in a shawl. No, you go put tefillin. All the Rebbe's campaigns, go to the army. It's all about the moon star, meaning finding, like Rabbi Kiva says, being out there and finding creative ways to show your love and your connection to a fellow Jew. The Rebbe says, where's my point? Where did I prove this from?
Yeah.
This week's Parsha. How does the Rebbe prove it? Because even Moshe and Betzalel, when they were having a discussion, what you need to do first, second, etc., and they agreed that there has to be structure, you'll suddenly notice that they made the roof before the walls. Why? So the Rebbe says that's to do with the Parashat Vayakel says that how did they make this roof? How did they make this tapestry? It was woven on from goat's wood.
Yeah.
But the Torah says, "V'chol hanashim asher nasa liban otan tavu it b'chochma." They made, the women did it, and they made it with extra wisdom. What's the extra wisdom that was used to make the roof, the tapestry? So Rashi tells us that they had a special skin. Today nobody knows how to do it, but they would weave the strings on the animals themselves. And why? Because that way the wool stayed more fresh. You know, when you cut something, let's say a branch of a tree, it starts becoming drier. They wanted it to be the top quality, connoisseurs of quality. So they managed to make the tapestry on the animals. They wove it on the animals without even shearing it off.
Yeah.
So you can imagine you had many animals close to each other and a big piece of cloth tapestry covering a roof for the Mishkan. But once the second it was ready, if they would leave it on the animals, it would be tzar balei chayim, it would be pain to the animal. So they said, you know what? If we're going to wait till we build the walls, poor animals are going to be clung together and they're going to be suffering. So once, at the beginning to make it, it's okay, you're allowed. But once it's no longer necessary to prolong their pain, cut it off. So because of the mitzvah of tzar balei chayim, they changed the natural order of things, and one exception to the rule, going out of the order, was making the roof before they made the walls to avoid pain for the animals. So Rebbe said, what do you learn from this? Even we all agree that you need to have structure, and Moshe conceded. Nonetheless, they changed from the structure to save the pain of an animal. So the Rebbe says, if for an animal, you need to be concerned. Akiva's mitzvah to care for somebody else surely trumps any natural order of things. So therefore the Rebbe said, if before the question was that verse today for sure comes first. All the years, all Jews were okay. You know, my great-grandfather, your great-grandfather, any Jewish great-grandfather, they were all orderly Jews at I guarantee you, they put on tefillin every day. They went to shul, they studied, everything was fine. So it wasn't so important if the moon, the extra mitzvahs, the after Hakamocha comes first. But now we need to go out the extra, out of the way. The after Hakamocha, Rabbi Kiva says, if you care for the animals, how much more so the human? There's so many Jews out there that they're missing their connection. They're not. Their souls need this igniting and bring them back. So you need to do like a moon. You need to be out of the structure. You need to come up with these amazing ideas, break boundaries, come up with innovative concepts, come up with a new light, reinvent yourself to bring Mashiach out of the ordinary. And that needs to definitely take priority. That's definitely what we need to do. Of course, we still need to do the regular stuff every day, and we need to have structure. So, but what's the added edge? What's the primary in our time? Parashat Pekudei is teaching us if we can see the suffering of an animal and therefore change, we need to see the suffering of the souls of so many Jews that they're dormant, they're sleeping, they need to be awoke. They need to open a Chabad in Tahiti, go send the Chabad rabbi to Meshuggah places. Why? You got to be like the moon, come up with creative things, all kinds of concepts that break the boundaries. And each and every one of us has this responsibility. It doesn't matter if you're a businessman, if you're a workman, a rabbi, where you can come up and say, you know what, it's not good enough that the sun rose yesterday and it set and rose today. I need to come up like the moon. I need to come up with something that wasn't there yesterday. I need something new, totally, something fresh, something that will push, make a difference. You see what's going on in Israel. You see the world needs amazing new energy. And that's therefore the message of Parashat Pekudei when it falls in a leap year. Teaching us as Jews we have this combination of both, but Parashat Pekudei teaches us to put the priority in the right place. So Hashem will all take this message and be like the moon, find something new, creative, as Jews are like the moon, and now one thing will tip the scale and bring Mashiach Tzidkenu speedily in our days. Amen. Chazak u'baruch.
Thank you.